Have you ever judged someone based on how they looked, only to find out you made the biggest mistake of your life? That's exactly what happened when a luxury boutique manager thought she could humiliate a casually dressed woman who didn't fit the look. But what she didn't realize was that woman was Susan Downey. And when Robert Downey Jr. walked in moments later, what he did stunned everyone and changed everything. This story spirals into a scandal no one saw coming, and trust me, you won't believe how it ends. But before we dive deeper, let us know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you love stories with shocking twists. Because tomorrow, we've got another unforgettable tale coming your way. Now back to the boutique. Eloise Paris wasn't just a store, it was a fortress of luxury, a hidden cathedral for the world's ultra-elite. From the outside, its minimalist facade gave little away. But step inside and you'd be met with genuine leather seating, rare imported rugs, and shelves lined with pieces from designers whose names only the wealthiest recognized. Even the air whispered exclusivity, infused with a rich woody fragrance, soft jazz floating in the background, and champagne offered only to a select few. Here, if you had to ask the price, you didn't belong. Enforcing those silent, snobbish rules was Helena, the boutique manager. Sharp eyes, impeccable posture, always in a sleek black designer dress and towering heels. She wasn't just selling clothing, she was selling status, and she protected the boutique's image like a personal mission. So when the front door chimed and a woman stepped inside dressed in a plain white hoodie, black cap, and simple sweatpants, Helena's instincts kicked in. Anywhere else, Susan Downey might have passed unnoticed. But here, she was a glaring outlier. Helena, who had been adjusting a diamond necklace on a VIP client, froze. Her eyes locked onto Susan instantly. To her, this woman was clearly just another tourist, here to browse, maybe snap a few photos and leave without buying a thing. And that would not be tolerated. With quiet precision, Helena approached the entrance. Clara, one of the boutique assistants, noticed immediately, and so did we, the viewers, who knew exactly who that casually dressed woman really was. Injustice was brewing. Susan strolled through the boutique slowly, lightly touching the delicate fabrics of dresses worth tens of thousands. She loved fashion, always had, but she loathed the arrogance that sometimes came with it. "Can I help you?" Helena asked, her voice sugar-coated, but ice-cold beneath. Susan turned with a polite smile. "Oh, thank you, I'm just looking." Helena's smile didn't waver, but her tone sharpened ever so slightly. "Just so you're aware, we only carry exclusive, made-to-measure items. Nothing here is displayed by accident." It wasn't just a warning, it was a challenge. Her tone said, "You don't belong here." Susan held her composure. "I imagine it's not." Helena blinked. That wasn't the response she expected. Still, she hoped this woman would get the hint and leave. But Susan didn't move. Instead, she reached for a dress from the newest collection, a couture piece with a price tag that would make most people's eyes water. Helena stiffened. Enough was enough. She glanced toward the counter. "Clara," she said quietly, "keep an eye on that woman." Clara hesitated. "Why?" Helena sighed. "She might ruin the experience for our real clients." Clara said nothing, but inside, something shifted. She knew something wasn't right. Susan kept browsing calmly as whispers began rippling through the boutique. Two VIP clients murmured from the couch. Who let her in? A hoodie and sweatpants. Is she lost? Susan couldn't hear the words, but she could feel the judgment. Still, she said nothing. Not yet. Helena, however, had made up her mind. She needed to end this before her boutique's precious reputation was tarnished any further. Helena decided to be more direct. With sharp, calculated steps, she walked right up to Susan and said with a polished, professional smile, "Ma'am, I see you've taken an interest in that dress." Susan turned to her calmly, unfazed. "Yes, it's beautiful." Helena nodded, but her eyes were already scanning Susan's casual outfit. "I agree, but perhaps I could suggest something that better suits your style." Susan raised an eyebrow. "My style?" Helena's smile didn't falter, but her posture tightened. "Yes, we have some more casual pieces, something that might make you feel more comfortable." Clara, still watching from across the boutique, felt her heart skip. She'd seen Helena pull this act before, but something about today felt different. Susan gave a knowing smile. "You think I wouldn't be comfortable in this?" Helena blinked, caught off guard once again. Something about Susan's gaze triggered an unease she couldn't quite place. "I just meant that you think I can't afford it." The question landed with the force of a slap, delivered softly but impossible to ignore. Nearby attendants suddenly became deeply interested in the shelves. The VIP clients hushed, leaning in to listen. Clara stopped breathing. Helena, to her credit, didn't flinch. "Not at all, ma'am. I was simply suggesting something more appropriate." Susan studied her for a second, and then she laughed. Quietly, controlled, but unmistakably amused. Helena felt a chill crawl down her spine. "I see," Susan said. "Thanks for the suggestion." She continued browsing, but then, almost as if daring Helena to react, she picked up a black silk dress, an elegant piece from a limited collection with a price tag most customers wouldn't dare ask about. Helena's eyes immediately locked onto her again. She inhaled deeply and approached. Once more, she stood beside Susan, looking her up and down slowly, judging her hoodie, her loose sweatpants, her black cap. And then Helena smiled. But this time, it wasn't warm. It was tight, artificial, poisoned with condescension. "Are you sure you want to try on that dress?" she asked. Susan raised an eyebrow but didn't answer, so Helena pushed further, not giving her time to respond. "I just mean, this particular design requires a certain posture, a grace to bring out its natural elegance. And of course, the right accessories." Her eyes lingered deliberately on Susan's outfit, the sweatshirt, the cap, everything Helena considered wrong. Then she chuckled softly. "I could suggest something more fitting for your profile." There it was, the insult, polished, dressed up in boutique vocabulary, but unmistakable. Susan caught it instantly. And now she was sure Helena had no idea who she was, and that made things more interesting. She held the dress for a moment, then looked Helena dead in the eyes. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Helena didn't blink. "Just that this kind of piece was designed for women who know how to wear it." Susan frowned slightly. "Women who know how to wear it?" "Yes," Helena said firmly. "Women who understand the sophistication of haute couture, who can recognize the fabric, the cut, who don't need help understanding the value of a dress like this." Susan took a deep breath. She was used to being treated like a producer, a creator, a Hollywood force behind the camera. But today, in this boutique, she was being treated like she was nothing. And that said more about Helena than it ever could about her. Without looking away, Susan asked, "So, you think I don't understand?" Helena's smile widened slightly. "I think some people mistake this boutique for just any store." Susan let out a light laugh, amused but unsurprised. "So, in your opinion, I shouldn't be here?" "Oh, I would never say that," Helena replied, tilting her head. "But some of our clients might feel uncomfortable." There it was, finally said out loud. Helena was no longer hiding behind smiles. She wanted Susan gone. Susan pressed her lips together for a beat, then exhaled slowly. "I see." Helena thought she had won, that Susan would walk out quietly, embarrassed and humiliated, but instead, something else happened. Susan looked Helena straight in the eye, and in a calm, composed voice, she said the one sentence that brought the entire boutique to a dead stop. "Funny, because when I walked in, no one offered me champagne." The silence was instant. Attendants exchanged uneasy glances. The VIP clients froze, whispering behind their hands. Everyone in the room knew what that meant. In Eloise, Paris, champagne was a silent ritual of acknowledgement, a gesture reserved for VIPs. But Susan Downey, a name Helena still hadn't recognized, got nothing. And for the first time, Helena's perfect composure cracked. Her face went pale. Helena quickly tried to recover. "Oh, that must have been an oversight," she said, trying to keep her tone breezy. "Of course, I'll have a glass brought to you right away." But Susan smiled, and it wasn't the kind of smile you wanted to see. "No need," she said softly. Her voice was smooth, but razor sharp. "I've already seen everything I needed to see." Before Helena could answer, Susan turned to Clara, the young assistant who had been silently observing everything. "Do you think this dress would look good on me?" she asked gently. Clara hesitated, her eyes darting nervously between Susan and Helena. Then she took a breath and stood a little straighter. "Yes," Clara said, "it would look incredible." Helena felt the floor shift beneath her. For the first time, she really realized that she was no longer in control. And yet, she clung to the illusion. Helena still believed she could fix this, salvage her authority. But the truth was clear to everyone watching. She had already lost. She just didn't know it yet. That woman in the white sweatshirt, the baseball cap, the plain sneakers, refused to back down, refused to play the game Helena thought she controlled. Worse, she was flipping the rules. First, the directness, then the dig about the champagne, and now Clara, her own assistant, had openly contradicted her in front of everyone. Panic and pride collided in Helena's chest. She couldn't lose, not here, not now. So, she did what people like her always do when they feel cornered. She attacked. Helena stepped forward, her smile cold and brittle. "Well," she said, her voice edged with fake politeness, "since you're so interested in the dress, I'll have one of our sales staff help you in the fitting room." There was something unmistakable in her tone, a quiet contempt, the unspoken message, "If you insist on embarrassing yourself, I'll make sure to witness it." Susan caught it instantly, but before she could respond, Helena turned to Clara. "Clara, please take this piece to the fitting room," she said, "and see if we have an appropriate size." Susan arched an eyebrow. She knew exactly what that meant. Appropriate size, fitting, profile. Helena wasn't just questioning her fashion sense anymore. She was questioning whether Susan even belonged in a place like this. Clara felt a chill pass through her. The room went silent. Some of the VIP clients chuckled under their breath, not because they found it funny, but because the drama had become too delicious to look away from. Susan took a slow breath and crossed her arms, still holding the dress. She looked around. The glances weren't just aimed at her anymore, they were aimed at Helena too. Some clients were clearly enjoying the spectacle, but others looked uneasy because they knew if it could happen to this woman, it could happen to them too. Helena noticed the shift, but pride clouded her judgment. She doubled down. "You know, Mum," she said, voice laced with mock concern, "we have a more affordable store just 3 blocks away. You might find something that suits your style a little better there." The insult landed like a punch. Even Clara flinched. Susan blinked, stunned for just a second, then laughed. A low, disbelieving laugh. "Did you just suggest I go to a cheaper store?" Helena didn't flinch. "I just think some clients prefer things that are more practical," she said, smiling again. "More comfortable." Then came the final blow, the one that sealed her fate. "After all," Helena added, "luxury isn't for everyone." Silence. Heavy, loaded silence. Even the VIPs didn't know where to look. The sales assistants froze. Clara's stomach twisted. Susan was still smiling, but this time it was a different smile. Dangerous, unforgiving. Then calmly, she took the dress, draped it over her arm, and began walking toward the register. Helena frowned. "What are you doing?" Susan didn't look at her right away. She stopped at the counter, placed the dress down, and finally turned. "I'll take it." The boutique went dead still. Helena laughed, scoffed. "Really? Really?" Susan nodded. "Yes. After all, luxury may not be for everyone." She pulled off her sunglasses and met Helena's gaze directly. "But I'm pretty sure it's for me." And just like that, everything stopped. Helena's world caved in. Her smile vanished. One of the VIP clients gasped. Another leaned in and whispered, stunned, "Oh my God!" Because now everyone saw her clearly. Susan Downey, Hollywood powerhouse, producer, studio executive, wife of Robert Downey Jr., a woman with a career that shaped an industry and a fortune to match. Helena turned white. The air shifted. Every person in that boutique realized what had just happened. Helena, so smug, so certain, had just humiliated one of the most powerful women in film. And the worst part? She had done it in full view of everyone. Then, just as the room struggled to process what was happening, the boutique doors opened again. And what happened next, no one would ever forget. The boutique knew it. The VIP clients were speechless. The sales assistants didn't dare move. Clara held her breath, sensing something even bigger was about to happen. And then, the boutique doors opened again. The soft chime echoed through the space. But this time, the sound felt different. Because when he walked in, the boutique collectively stopped breathing. He stepped forward with slow, deliberate steps. Robert Downey Jr. His long black coat swayed slightly with each stride. His slightly disheveled hair gave him an effortless charm, but his eyes weren't surprised. Because he already knew. He already knew exactly what had happened here. And more importantly, he knew who he was looking for. Without hesitation, he crossed the boutique, never glancing at anyone else. Not the clients, not the staff, only her. Helena's entire body tensed. The VIP clients turned, stunned. Clara swallowed hard, and then Robert stopped. Right in front of Susan. He didn't say a word. Instead, he wrapped her in an embrace. Strong, real. The embrace of someone who hadn't just arrived, but who had always been on her side. Susan hugged him back, genuine, steady, and a soft smile played across her lips. And then, the worst happened. One of the VIP clients, an impeccably dressed blonde, turned to a sales assistant and said, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "If they treat Susan Downey like this, imagine how they treat the rest of us." The room absorbed it, like a slap. And in that instant, Helena saw her career crumble in real time. Her status, her reputation, the image she had spent years curating, shattering. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket. A notification. Helena didn't have to look to know. The video was out. Clara had recorded it. Or maybe one of the clients. But it didn't matter who. It was too late now. Every second ticked louder than the last. Helena forced a smile, a desperate thin mask of control. "Mrs. Downey," she stammered, clearing her throat. Her voice cracked. "I had no idea who you were." Susan crossed her arms. "And that justifies something." Helena opened her mouth, but nothing came, because suddenly her own words sounded absurd. Her career was collapsing, and finally, with her mask shattering and no dignity left to cling to, Helena stood in silence, defeated. Because Susan Downey hadn't just walked into the boutique. She had walked in with a quiet kind of power. And now, she was walking out with something far more valuable than a designer dress. Every ounce of respect the boutique once had. She simply lowered her head, because there was nothing left she could do. And then, Helena's phone vibrated once more. The message that would seal her fate. Her hands trembled as she lifted the phone. On the screen, a notification from the boutique owner. "Helena, we have a serious problem. I need to speak with you immediately." Her heart pounded. Her world spun. But before she could even react, one of the VIP clients stood up. With a firm voice and her designer handbag in hand, she declared, "I don't shop at places that mistreat their customers. I'm leaving." And she walked out without looking back. Helena watched, frozen. She realized then, this wasn't just about Susan Downey and Robert Downey Jr. anymore. She wasn't just losing their respect. She was losing everyone's. Another client rose. If this happened to her, it could happen to any of us. The murmurs grew louder. The sales assistants exchanged nervous glances. The boutique, once her kingdom, now felt like a courtroom. And Helena? Alone. And then came the final blow. Clara, the young assistant who had once idolized Helena, took a deep breath. Without making eye contact, she quietly removed her name tag and placed it on the counter. "I can't work here anymore." Helena's face broke with shock. "Clara!" she whispered, her voice thin, almost pleading. But Clara didn't even pause. Instead, she turned to Susan and Robert and did something no one expected. "May I walk you both to the exit?" Susan smiled warmly. "Of course." And just like that, the boutique doors opened again. But this time, they didn't open for a VIP. They opened for a walkout. Helena, once the gatekeeper of exclusivity, stood in stunned silence as everyone walked out, leaving her behind. But the worst was yet to come, and Helena wasn't ready for what came next. Meanwhile, across the city, at a quiet little cafe, Susan Downey and Robert Downey Jr. sat together, calm, relaxed. Clara, the former boutique assistant, sat across from them, still visibly overwhelmed. Susan took a sip of coffee and looked at her. "So, Clara, what's next for you?" Clara gave a small shrug, a little shy. "I don't know. Maybe I'll find something new, somewhere I can actually grow." Robert smiled. "Well, turns out, I know a few people who could help with that." Clara's eyes widened. "Really?" Susan nodded. "We like helping the ones who deserve it." Then Susan's phone vibrated. A message from a friend. She opened it and read it aloud. "The boutique manager has been officially fired. The video now has 20 million views." She looked at Robert. They exchanged a knowing glance. And then Susan said the words that would end this story once and for all. Some people think luxury is power, but real power is knowing how to treat people with respect. Robert nodded. Clara smiled. And across the city, in a silent, empty apartment, Helena was finally learning that lesson. The lesson that status isn't eternal, that the judgment of the world is swift and unforgiving, and that above all, luxury means nothing without dignity. If this story moved you, you're not alone, because it's not just about fashion or fame. It's about respect, humanity, and second chances. And if you believe in those things too, subscribe to our channel, because we have many more stories that will warm your heart, open your mind, and remind you what truly matters. Click on the screen to discover more stories of hope, compassion, and resilience. And remember, kindness never goes out of style.